Story 1. I am in a do-it-yourself shop looking for a new light for my bedroom. The girl helping me is smiling and blushing, telling me about the university she is attending, the course she is studying, and the kind of music she likes. I say, "Okay, can you find me the light I am looking for?" I am sure my mother was dying on the inside several times as she watched all this go right over my head. It was only on the way home in her car that she said, "You know she was trying to flirt with you?" Well, story 2. Back in the late 1990s, in Providence, Rhode Island, my naive college freshman self was standing outside a pizza place waiting for my roommate and his girlfriend to finish paying for their late-night snack. This was before cell phones, so I was just staring off into space, minding my own business. A man stopped his car, opened his window, and asked me for directions to a well-known bar. I figured he was from out of town. After I gave him directions, this happened. Him. "Hey, thanks, man. By the way, I hope you don't mind me asking, but what sort of underwear do you wear?" Me. Shocked, tidy whities? Him, so you're a big guy? Need that extra support? Me. Is still stunned, yes? Him. You need a ride anywhere, big man? Me, I'm walking. I walk. I walk a lot. To girls' houses. I like girls. Him. Chuckles, maybe another time. My roommate and his girlfriend came outside in time to hear me say, "I like girls." And the man laughed and drove off. They asked me what happened, and I repeated the conversation. For the rest of the term, all my friends teased me about my underwear and told me to be careful of strangers in cars. Anytime I needed a ride somewhere, they'd say, "Need a ride, big man?" Good times. Story 3. I was at a happy hour standing at the bar to get another drink. Music was playing, and a short girl squeezed in between me and the bar. She pushed against me, then leaned back and asked what I wanted to drink. Story 4. At the bar with my friends. A rather inebriated lady appeared suddenly and wrapped herself around my arm, loudly whispering, "Do you want to carry me home in these?" It was like a flirty jump scare. Story 5. A girl shouted from her car window that she wanted to sit on my face. It was a neighborhood street during the day, and there were children around. I have not seen her again. Story 6. Back in my younger and slightly skinnier years, I was drinking with some friends when a young woman sat right down beside me and whispered in my ear, "I'm going home with you tonight." She then stayed with me and my friends for the rest of the evening. She did, in fact, go home with me that night. It turned into a 15-month relationship, but that is a whole different story. Edit 1. I have been asked to tell the rest of the story, so here it goes. For the purposes of anonymity, I will call my ex Jane. As you read in part 1, Jane came home with me that night. It was definitely the wildest night I had ever had up until that point. I was more than willing to ask her to stay another night, which she did. 2 nights turned into 3, and then she started coming over on a regular basis. After about 2 months of us getting together, Jane looked at me one evening and said, "Are we in a relationship?" I slowly chewed the candy bar in my mouth, probably the start of me getting not so skinny, and replied, "I think we are." That was the beginning of an intense relationship that was never boring and always respectful, even when we were at each other's throats. After just over a year together, Jane received a remarkable job offer in the United States, something she simply could not turn down. We tried the long-distance relationship for a few months, then realized it was neither economically feasible nor emotionally practical. So we mutually agreed to go our separate ways. She is definitely one of those people who made an impact in my life. We stayed in semi-regular contact for a while, but that eventually ended as well. Somewhere, there is a very happy man in a great relationship. Well, that is my story. Story 7. I was at a bar one night. She grabbed me and introduced me to her friends as her boyfriend. I was definitely taking her home with me. We dated for a year. Story 8. I was at a bar waiting in line for a drink. A lesbian woman came up to me and said, "I just wanted to say, I'm gay, but if I wasn't, I would jump your bones right now." Then she bought me a drink. I have been hit on by gay men before, but not by a lesbian woman. Story 9. Ran into some friends in a bar one night, and I was introduced to a guy's cousin and his girlfriend. 20 minutes later, the girlfriend stuffed a cocktail napkin into my shirt pocket and whispered, "Go read what it says." I went to the bathroom, pulled the napkin out of my pocket, and it said, "Take me home and have sex with me." Story 10. Went to a house party. Walked in the door, 5 seconds in, and a woman sitting on a couch with her friends looked at me, pointed, and loudly declared, "I'm with you tonight." She was right. Story 11. A woman who appeared intoxicated saw me walking back from the bathroom at a sports bar, leaned out of her booth, grabbed my arm and said, "I really want you to suck on my breasts." Story 12. I didn't notice it at all. My girlfriend looked at me and asked if I noticed her flirting with me, and I didn't. In my defense, we were at Disney World in Star Wars Land, so I was distracted. Story 13. Back in the 1980s, I was walking down the street by myself when a large man appeared suddenly and delivered a long speech about how he trains to be the strongest person and how expensive it is. Then he assaulted me and stole all of my money. Story 14. At a Fear Factory concert in London with a female friend, a random girl passed through the crowd. She pushed herself and her chest against me, even though there was plenty of space around me. She smiled and kept going. My friend then burst out laughing, saying I was just sexually assaulted. Story 15. An older gentleman at the bar asked if he could eat my buttocks. Unprompted, he was not quiet about it. He accepted no for an answer and did not become pushy or rude. He shrugged and laughed. What a guy. I think I will keep the gentleman label for him. Story 16. Someone at my previous fast food job walked up to the counter and shouted in the middle of the store, "Oh my God, you are gorgeous." Story 17. I was sitting in a bar. A woman came up to me, put her hands on my chest and said, "Really nice sweater." She planted a big kiss on me. We had a few drinks and then went back to my place. Story 18. I was probably 24 years old at the time and used to push carts at a grocery store. One day, I was working and pushing a large line of carts into the cart garage when a girl, about 18 to 21 years old, approached me with her cart. When I turned around, she said, "I know this is random, but my friend thinks you have a really nice backside and was wondering if she could get your number." I politely declined and told her I was with someone. A few moments later, she and her friend drove by to leave, and the friend yelled out the open window, "You do have a nice backside. Have a good day." Story 19. I had a 90-year-old lady hooked up to an oxygen tank, and she told me, "I would have a relationship with you, but I wouldn't take you for coffee," whatever that means. I wish I had a quick response about possibly harming her if this happened, but I was kind of thrown off. Story 20. A man drove right next to me for a while, and when I finally looked over, he blew me a kiss. Story 21. I was walking down the sidewalk when a man approached me and said, "Honey, how about you and I go somewhere together?" I told him that I appreciated the offer but would have to pass today. I wished him luck in finding an available participant. Story 22. I was on a cruise with my family. My wife and teen daughter had gone on a shore excursion. I stayed on board, as did my other teen son who was playing video games. After I finished my work call, I headed to a bar. I sat down 2 seats away from a pretty attractive woman. She struck up a conversation. After about 15 minutes, she said, "I am on this ship celebrating my divorce. You are funny and smart, and I find that attractive. I haven't been with someone in almost 2 years. Do you want to come back to my cabin with me?" I showed her my wedding ring and said, "That is a very tempting offer, but I couldn't live with myself." She got up to leave and said, "I wish my ex was half the man you are." Story 23. I was in school at the time when a girl complimented me in class about 15 times on random things about my appearance. She liked my shirt, my shoes, my pants, my hair, my freckles, my smile, my eyes, my eyelashes, my lips, my backpack, my nose, my hands, my forearms, and said I was the perfect height. She also liked the tired look I had and the way I stared into space. All of this happened separately throughout an hour-and-a-half long class. I didn't offer a single compliment back. I just said thank you every time. I never once considered that she could be interested in me. Story 24. I was in the passenger seat of my roommate's car when we were driving off campus. Three girls went by, and one yelled, "You're hot. Let's have sex." I thought I should get out of the car, but I had smoked enough marijuana to kill an elephant, so I had zero confidence. Story 25. I was at a bar with my friend and his girlfriend. We were there for a Herbie Hancock tribute band. We wanted to play pool until the show started, but every table was full. I noticed one table had a woman playing by herself, so I asked if we could join, and she said yes. Within 10 minutes, she looked me in the eyes and said, "I mean, I'd like you." I don't remember the context because at the time I was just discovering my self-confidence, and hearing a woman say that to me was surprising. I had never considered that some women might actually be looking at me that way. It blew my mind. There is more to the story that night, but we ended up dating for 6 years and have a son we love very much. Story 26. I was at a party about 10 years ago, a house music party. It was around 3 in the morning when a woman came up to me and said, "You look really cute with your boyfriend." The boyfriend she was referring to was a friend of mine, and I let her know. She then said, "Ah, good then, lucky me." She kissed me and gave me her number. I wrote to her the next day, and we dated for about a year. Story 27. A girl came up to me at my job, grabbed my beard, and said she loved it. I felt very awkward and just said thank you. She stood there for what felt like an eternity. Story 28. I was in the grocery store a few weeks ago, looking at a variety of single-serving frozen meals. A friendly middle-aged woman behind me offered to show me how to cook one for dinner. I was impressed by her confidence. My wife was down the aisle and saw the interaction as well. She still jokingly calls me names. Story 29. Had a girl give me her number. When I looked at it later, I realized she probably didn't notice it was on the back of a receipt for tampons. In Dublin, Ireland, on my first day, first pub, and within the first 5 minutes, a girl just started making out with me and grabbing me intimately. Another time in the United States, I was standing in line in a club to get to another area when a girl came up behind me, wrapped her arms around me, pressed her body and head against my back, and stayed there. I used to like dancing and would always get into the cage or lifted area over the dance floor. Most of the time, one or two girls would find their way up there to me and start dancing closely. I have a lot of these stories, probably missing some better ones. It has been a long time since a woman hit on me. Another time, I got a bit too drunk at a party and went to sleep in a spare bedroom. She woke me up about an hour later and initiated contact. Story 30. I don't remember all the details because I had been drinking. However, I know that she initiated the interaction because I am very shy and polite and would never make a pass at a stranger in a bar. I remember her encouraging me to motorboat her chest, which I happily did. I then called over my friends and said, "Hey guys, look what I can do." I proceeded to motorboat her for everyone to see. Everyone in the bar cheered. This is a true story. Story 31. I am a straight man. I went to a gay bar with a gay couple I am good friends with to watch a drag show. Standing at the urinal with two gentlemen waiting behind me, one man said, "Look at his ass." The other replied, "My tongue is hard." I was hit on several other times that evening by some very nice men, two of whom I have become friends with. One even attended my wedding 28 years ago. I learned that if I ever need an ego boost, I should go to a gay bar. Story 32. I've been hit on a couple of times. Once I thought this is it. On Fridays, I'd stop after work at a bar that had great food. I'd always sit at the bar and establish my little campsite. Newspaper, phone, glasses, etc. The bar was very packed, and a very good-looking young lady tapped me on the shoulder and asked if anyone was sitting next to me. I said no and hurriedly moved my stuff to the other side. As I turned around ready to converse, she was walking away with the bar stool. Oh well. Story 33. I was out shopping one day at a grocery store. A man approached me smiling and tried to take my trolley. He then told me in very broken English that he would assist me with my shopping. I politely told him no thank you. He looked very sad but walked away. A little while later, I saw him filming me. It was gross, disturbing, and made me feel very uncomfortable. Story 34. A tanned, middle-aged woman once told me to protect my beautiful lips as I was applying lip balm at the airport. Maybe she was not hitting on me, though. Strange woman either way. Story 35. Probably one of the many times I have been sexually harassed or assaulted by older women attempting to or successfully groping me through my pants, or the lewd comments about my bulge. Story 36. A mentally unstable man grabbed me by the shirt strap in broad daylight on a busy street and said, "Come, let me have sex with you." Story 37. Senior year in high school, I had gained a little weight and stopped regularly wearing my class ring. I lost the weight over the summer and then began wearing it again in college. As a drummer, I wasn't quite used to wearing it while playing yet, so I was jamming with a potential new band. My friend was sitting near me enjoying our music. I handed her my ring to hold until we finished playing. During the next song, I glanced over and saw that she had put it on a chain around her neck. I asked her if that was a hint, and she gave me those eyes and replied, "It could be." Story 38. I was a bartender a long time ago. I am very secure with my sexuality, but I was also a theater kid, so often people would take my over-the-topness as flamboyance and suspect me of being gay. A guy came in and sat at the bar during a slow time, waiting for someone. I naturally struck up a conversation with him and talked a lot about craft beer until his guest arrived and they grabbed a table. After the shift change, I got off work and sat down at the bar to have a few drinks with the rest of the day shift. This guy came back and handed me his number in front of all my coworkers. One of the girls I work with tried to make a joke at my expense, and all I could say was, "I don't care. Someone wants to be with me. How many numbers did you get today?" Story 39. Drunk man at the bar said, "Are you with this person?" He motioned with his finger and started to walk away. "Follow me." I did not follow him off the dance floor. My husband of many years and I laughed together. Story 40. In this thread, men fondly remembering the one time it happened to them. Not in this thread. Women sharing daily harassment and discomfort. Story 41. Hey, want a blow job? A man, speaking in a hushed yet raised voice, shouted from a car passing me on Thames Street in Newport, Rhode Island. It was likely after the bar closed as I, then just 21 years old, was walking home from a night out. Summer of 1996. Story 42. An intoxicated woman at a bar slammed her phone down, turned to me and said, "My boyfriend just broke up with me with a text. What are we going to do about that?" I was just at the right place at the right time. Story 43. I was at work assisting a customer. I stepped away, and when I came back, she had the top few buttons of her shirt unbuttoned, which previously was not the case, exposing her cleavage and part of her bra. I commented, "Hey, your shirt came unbuttoned," and she buttoned it back up. I stepped away again, and when I returned, her shirt was unbuttoned once more. She then handed me her phone number with a note saying, "If you want to see more, call me." Story 44. Standing in line at a coffee shop, the woman behind me says something out loud, and I reply. We make small talk for a bit, and then she says, "You know what?" and writes down and hands me her number. I am a man, so this is obviously going to stick with me for the rest of my life. Story 45. Oh, I have been waiting for this one. When you are a flight attendant for Delta Airlines, you have the option of buying and wearing pink uniform pieces for the month of October for breast cancer awareness. Men go absolutely wild for the pink dresses. I do not know what it is about that shade of pink that is so universally flattering, but it is. I received comments from sweet old men, snaps from the gay community, free coffees from the staff at Caribou Coffee, and the strangest things I have ever heard come out of a man's mouth. I was standing at the boarding door, and boarding was going as slowly as it usually does on an oversold flight to Key West in the middle of June. The line paused, and a man in his 20s, around my age at the time, and I were just chatting. He asked what the pink was for, gesturing at my coworker who was setting up the galley next to me wearing a pink tie, and me in my pink dress because of course I was wearing the pink dress. I told him it was for Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and he chuckled and said, "Well, if you need an exam, I am in seat 32B. The captain, who was in the flight deck right behind me, heard him, and he never actually made it to seat 32B. Story 46. I was out to dinner with Goldberry, and when the lady brought our drinks over, she laid down a napkin with her phone number on it and said, "You should call me." We had a good laugh about the fact that she was a few millennia too young for me. Story 47. On a date, we were having dinner in a beautiful restaurant at the marina. They had live music with a singer and a three-piece band. The singer proceeded to sing all of the love songs to me while we were sitting right up front. I pretended it was not happening. So awkward. My date was very mad. Story 48. I don't consider guys yelling, "Suck my dick," as flirting. I'd say an older man striking up a conversation and plainly complimenting my looks, saying he would consider himself lucky if I were interested in him, is very different. He leaves it open for me to decide if I want to engage. I wasn't interested, but I appreciated the way he approached me, leaving the door open without directly inviting me inside. There was no insistence that I either come in or close the door, no attempt to guilt or coerce me. It was much more enjoyable than trying to say no to a pushy man. It even made me consider saying yes for a moment. Story 49. A man came up to me at work and complimented my shoes. They were old and worn, so I knew he just wanted to start a conversation. It was a little awkward, but he was attractive. Story 50. I was stopping by Walmart after work to get a dog bone for my aunt's German Shepherd. Walmart was really busy, and I was tired and just wanted to be quick. A random man approached me and said, "That's a big bone. Must have a big dog." I laughed a little and said, "Yeah." He asked for my phone number despite seeing I was wearing a ring, and I told him that I am married. He ignored what I said and asked to see me and set a date. I repeated that I was married and walked away. I was in the other aisle at this point when he shouted, "Don't have to be so rude about it." Like I said, Walmart was busy. Everyone stared. Story 51. I had a random woman sit next to me at a bar. We chatted for a few minutes, and she flat out said, "Let's leave and go." I have had my share of random hookups, but I am used to at least having to ask first. Being the gentleman that I am, I obliged her. Story 52. To me, it always feels most blatant when strangers ask if I am single or for my phone number. Simple but confrontational. Story 53. Are you working this weekend? I was an American college student in London. I wore a black wool skirt below my knees, a white long-sleeve satin blouse buttoned up, standard low black dress shoes, and a black trench coat. I was on my way to the symphony with other students. Story 54. I was at an after-party for an event. A woman was laughing at my jokes and touching my arms. I am not that funny. I was married at the time, so I left. Story 55. A guy came up to me while I was waiting at the bus stop and told me he thought I was attractive. We had some small talk and exchanged Instagram handles. We exchanged some texts there, but he really wasn't saying much for an actual conversation. I lost interest but responded to be polite. When he suggested we should do something sometime, I told him I really wasn't feeling any vibe. He then responded with, "What? I haven't made you feel attracted yet?" "No, sir, you haven't. I've never been drier." There was literally no flirting before that comment. Story 56. I was standing beside Starbucks waiting for the bus. I had my hair in pigtails because I was feeling fun that morning. A guy walked up to me and said, unprompted, "Nice pigtails. Want to have sex?" Story 57. I was making out with my wife at a bar one time when a man approached and said, "Are you going to dance with me or just make out with this man all night?" Pure legend. Story 58. I was putting gas in my car and randomly locked eyes with a man in his car, leaving the gas pump across from where I was parked. He made a U-turn, parked his car, and jumped out. He waved and said, "Hi, I'm Matt and you're gorgeous. Can I get your number?" Story 59. Once, on a date with my girlfriend, we were sitting outdoors at an ice cream shop. A group of gay men walked along the sidewalk. One turned back, looked at me, interrupted our conversation, and asked if the carpet matches the drapes. He said he wanted to steam me up and down. He was absolutely serious. The girl I was with cracked up. I was in total shock and embarrassed. I ended up marrying the girl I was on the date with. Story 60. A man walked up to me and flat out told me I was beautiful. I, unfortunately, am not gay but am still riding that high. Story 61. Him. Yo, are you gay? Me, no, I actually have a girlfriend. Him. Damn. Can I at least get your number? Me. I don't usually give that out to people. Him. Damn. Can I at least get your social media? Me. I'm not really active anywhere except Facebook. Him. Damn. Can I at least get your address? Me. Just go to your mom's house, you'll find me. Had to hit him with the your mom to get him to back off. We went to school together, but I only ever talked to him about 3 times and didn't even know his name. This also happened at Walmart while I was looking at Mother's Day cards. He was with a group of his friends. Still can't tell if he was serious or not, but he came across as if he was. Story 62. At the bar, I turned away from the bartender after getting my drink. A girl was already there pulling me to dance. It evolved from there. Story 63. I get catcalled by gay men regularly because I live in Chelsea, Manhattan. Yesterday, a man asked me where the gay bars were because I was biking shirtless and in short shorts. I am straight, but the confidence boost was unreal. Story 64. I was holding my 8-month-old daughter at a Starbucks, getting some coffee, and she started staring intensely at someone behind me. She has white blonde hair and bright blue eyes. Needless to say, she looks very intense when she wants to. From behind me, I started hearing young women say, "Ah, so cute." I looked behind me and saw 4 college students who were admiring her. I looked at my daughter and cutely asked, "Do you want to say hi? And, did you make some new friends?" One of the girls said, "Oh my God, I love her cheeks." My daughter had very pronounced cheeks when she was a baby. I said, "Yeah, we thought she'd grow into them, but they've kind of grown with her." There was one girl who was slightly overweight, twirling her hair, who gave me a smoky glance and said, Yeah, so did mine." I laughed it off, thinking it was a joke. It wasn't until I got my drink and was back in the parking lot that I realized. Story 65. I went to a rave one time, and there was a man there with a sign that said, "Nice guy." He was also East Indian, wearing a white robe and turban, with dynamite made out of red cardboard paper strapped to his chest. Story 66. As far as I know, I have never been approached romantically in public. I am known for missing social cues, so if it happened, it never occurred to me. Story 67. Just before takeoff, an airline attendant in her 20s touched my shoulder, leaned over, gave me a smile and said, "I just have to tell you, you are very handsome." I was 17 and sitting next to my mom at the time. Story 68. Hey, you look fit. Do you want to come to the party? Outside a pub in England when I was 18. And yes, I did go. Story 69. The man who owned the deli and pizza stall in our local market casually told me I was horny as he handed me my change. I was only 22 at the time and went as red as a berry. I remember mumbling thanks for my change and swiftly walking off. He was handsome, and I felt a strange mix of flattered and terrified. If only it had happened when I was braver, I would have gone there for all the olives you can eat. Story 70. Left my wife sitting at the bar and told her I was going to the bathroom. I passed by 3 women walking together the other way. The young African-American woman in the middle looked me up and down and smiled so big that I had to grin back. Then I went to the bathroom and sat down next to my wife. Story 71. I was just at Walmart last week, and some drunk person started yelling at me while I was standing in the snack aisle, covered in dirty, baggy clothes after coming straight from a barn. He said I was pretty and asked if I had a boyfriend. I said, "Yeah, sorry." Then he said, "Don't be sorry. There are plenty of fish in the sea," and walked away whistling. I wish all interactions like this ended so well. Story 72. I'm a guy, so I rarely get hit on. But once, I was walking around with my friends when a girl approached me. She asked if I was gay without any greeting. I said no, and she replied, "Okay, good. Let me get your number." Story 73. Walking out of a store when I was about 15, two girls approached me, grabbed my arm as I was walking, and started a conversation, one on each side. They told me they loved my outfit and called me cute. I never saw them again. I should have asked for their numbers, but I didn't. I assume it was probably a dare. Like, you both go flirt with that guy and I'll give you $20. Still, it was a massive confidence boost for me at the time and a welcome gesture, even though I recognized it might have just been done on a dare. Story 74. At the university, I was at a bar with a friend. My friend got up to use the restroom. A girl walked up and said, "Hi there. Is this chair taken?" Well, my friend just went to the... She sat down. "Thanks," and started a conversation. She said she had seen me on campus and wanted to talk to me but never had the courage. Okay. The surprising part is it wasn't until I was home weeks later that I realized she was interested in me. Story 75. My coworker who worked in the cubicle directly across from me was a very attractive recent immigrant from Southeast Asia. She was somewhat hard to read regarding whether she liked me or not, which I attributed to cultural differences. One day, she literally crawled on the floor under her desk to retrieve a pen she had dropped, wearing no underwear and with her skirt hiked up. I saw everything, though no one else did. She made sure I was looking. Sadly, I passed on the opportunity because I was committed to my girlfriend, who later cheated on me. Story 76. Went out with my friend and her friend with benefits, and he brought a friend. We got there first and sat at the bar. They walked up and the first thing he said was, "Give me your foot." I was confused but pulled my leg up. I thought he was going to say something negative about my big feet, but he took my shoe off, bent down, and sucked on my toe. I was freaking out inside because we had been dancing, but he kept going for a long time. I was weirded out because it was the first interaction, so nothing else happened. Story 77. I was doing a repair job on an outside door for an elderly woman, a friend of my mother's. I said, "Yes, Ellie, my son Carl will be glad to come over and fix your door." Ellie and the neighbor started talking over the fence. The neighbor came over and complimented my work, even though I wasn't finished. She asked if I do repairs around the house for my wife or if I am single. I said I am married. She replied, "Ah, too bad. A gal could use someone like you for a lot of things." I looked at her and she winked at me very playfully. Like the macho guy I am, I turned several shades of red, blushed, and dropped my screwdriver. Where were you and your type when I was single? Story 78. The one that really stands out was a customer at my workplace loudly telling me, "Oh my God, you have such pretty eyes." I am sure he was right, but I am a straight man. I am also totally oblivious to flirting. My now wife had to ask me out 3 times before I finally figured it out. She would do it publicly, as we often saw each other with mutual friends. No one clued me in. Story 79. When I was in outside sales, a prospective customer and I were standing outside her bakery talking. She mentioned that she enjoyed spending time together. So we went into the office and had an intimate moment. She became a customer. That was fun. Story 80. A few months after graduating high school, a very pretty girl whom I had recently befriended asked me to take the day off work to spend time with her at her house alone. I went to work that day. Story 81. I was 18, working as a waiter in a large Christmas banquet restaurant, handing out plates of food. I leaned over a woman aged about 50, and she grabbed my waist and exclaimed loudly, "You should come home with me tonight. I have a son your age, and in the morning you guys can hang out." I neither went home with her nor hung out with her son. Story 82. I was pumping gas when a girl pulled up next to me, rolled her window down and said, "Hey, my friend thinks you're attractive. Would you like to come back to our place?" I politely said no, thank you. This happened about 20 years ago. Story 83. Minding my own business, vibing on the dance floor at a bar on St. Patrick's Day. A drunk girl gets in my space, grinding against me. She says, "You're a good dancer." More grinding for a bit. Then she says, "I want to perform oral sex on you." Story 84. When I was about 21, I was out in the city and I bumped into a woman who was out on her bachelorette party. She had never met me before, and she walked straight up to me and told me that she wanted one last good experience before she got married. I walked away in total disgust. That poor man was in for a rough and short-lived marriage. Story 85. I was at a bar and there was a haggard woman. By profession, she was a cook on a crab boat, and she looked every bit the part. She had been watching me throughout the night and trying to start a drunken conversation. In a last-ditch effort to impress me, she ordered the largest pickle the bar had, looked me in the eye, and proceeded to use it provocatively. After enough attention was drawn from others, she took a shot and asked me, "Want to get out of here?" I was intrigued but terrified. I politely declined and have been trying to forget that image with alcohol ever since. Story 86. I was in a parking lot, minding my own business when a man a few cars away called out to me. He caught my attention, but I ignored him. When I was married, I wouldn't even make eye contact with strange men. I went to the ATM and he followed me. He looked me up and down like a wolf and said, "Baby, you were just the right size." He continued to hit on me using such funny language. I thawed and laughed. He laughed too. Story 87. I was riding my horse through the village decades ago, and I always smiled at everyone. A good-looking man walking the other way said, "I wish I were that horse." Story 88. Zombie me walking to university class at 7:15 a.m. A man at least 20 years older than me walked up and said, "I watched you from there. You look nice. Do you want to go for coffee with me?" I initially thought he was a homeless person who wanted some money. Unsurprisingly, I declined. Story 89. A girl pulled up beside me in the passenger seat giggling and gave me her name and number on a piece of paper. It was the first time this had happened in my life. I contacted her, took her to a movie, went back to her place, and she gave me oral sex. I met up with her a few more times. Then she stopped responding. I threw away her number. She wasn't that attractive anyway. I shrugged my shoulders. Life goes on. Story 90. Not me, but my then boyfriend. He and I were talking about what to buy next in the grocery store. We were talking face to face about 1 foot away from each other when a very pretty young woman pushed in between us with her back to me. She literally pushed up against me and handed my boyfriend her phone number, telling him to call her. To his credit, he took her by her shoulders, turned her around firmly and said, "See this woman? The one you are totally disrespecting. She's my girlfriend. Here's your number." Handed it back crumpled up. "I have no interest at all in you. Don't do stuff like this. Go away." This happened years ago, but I still remember it. Story 91. I went to a professional basketball game with my girlfriend at the time. We were seated next to another girl and her friend on my left. She was making normal small talk during the game, and when a player dunked on the opposing team, she grabbed my thigh. My girlfriend's face was furious. We left shortly after, but it was very intentional of the girl to my left. Story 92. I was on a date when someone came over to tell me how beautiful he thought I was and gave me his phone number. Story 93. I was dancing at a club when she walked up and told me I was beautiful. I liked that and we dated for a while. Twice, women have pushed me down and tried to get wild. I didn't mind in principle, but both women were my friends' significant others. Over-the-top flirting from gay men has been so common in my life that it all blurs together. I think it's great fun and am always kind in my rejections. Story 94. A lady left her business card at a checkpoint where I was working. She wanted to see me more, just not on Wednesdays. The next day, I told her I was engaged to be married. It would be inappropriate for me to call her. She respected my honesty. Story 95. I was at a bar waiting for my friends to arrive. I am always early to any social gathering. While waiting, it was just me, a girl down the bar, and the bartender. The girl was making small talk. Then she decided to video call her friend and loudly told her friend about the cute guy at the bar, turning her phone to record me. As a shy person, it made me uncomfortable. I am okay with small talk and maybe exchanging numbers, but that was an odd way to show interest. Looking back, maybe she was shy too and needed her friend for a confidence boost. My friends arrived while she was on the video call, and that was the end of it. Story 96. Spider-Man. Times Square. 2006. I do not remember the words verbatim, but there was definitely an offer. Flattered. Thank you, Spider-Man. Story 97. I was grocery shopping and was in one aisle for a while. I kept seeing, out of the corner of my eye, someone passing the aisle. I didn't think much of it until the man approached me and said, "You're so beautiful. I'm sorry we met under such circumstances. I would have loved to take you out to dinner." I was confused by why he worded it that way. Story 98. When I was in college, I was walking back to my car. A girl in my class was going the same direction, and we started talking. I did not think anything of it until she asked, do you want to go on a date? No thanks, I said. I am going to be getting married in a couple of weeks. Story 99. Sitting at a sports bar, drinking a beer and watching football. A girl sat down next to me, introduced herself, and immediately asked if I wanted to come home with her. Story 100. I was working the drive-thru at my old job, and a girl with about 50 piercings came through and said, "You are very attractive." I could hardly muster a thank you. I was so caught off guard. Story 101. I worked at a used bookstore for years. One night, I was ringing up a customer, and after I handed his bag of items back to him and told him to have a good night, he replied, "It would be a lot better if I was going home with you." Also, while working at the same bookstore, a young woman told me, "You smell good, like sex and cologne." Story 102. In high school, a girl slapped me on the butt, though to be honest, I did not like it. At work, we had a speaker in the back playing Kelly Rowland's song Motivation. A girl looked me straight in the eyes, smiled at me, and sang the lyrics. "And when we're done, I don't want to feel my legs." Also, a gay man hit on me when I attended community college a while back. Story 103. I'm kind of unattractive, so no one really shows romantic interest in me. However, there was one time in college when a very intoxicated woman slapped my buttocks and invited me to go home with her, so even my oblivious asexual self could understand the situation. Story 104. A girl asked me if I wanted to take a bath with her and rub lavender oil all over her body. I replied that it sounded like a nice way to unwind after a long day and left it at that. It was in the middle of a shift. Story 105. I was a lot younger back then, but I went from playing tag with a few random girls to being pinned down on a jumping pillow in a playground at a holiday park. I was dry-humped in a cowgirl-like pose while the other girl played with my hair. We basically played around for the rest of our stay and never really spoke again after, but it was definitely enjoyable while it lasted. Story 106. I was studying abroad in Singapore during my master's program. I was walking around Orchard Road, where there are many people and shops, when a sweet girl approached me and said, "Hey, do you want to be friends?" I wanted to learn more about her, but I was moving back to the United States in 4 or 5 days. I told her this, and she became sad and walked away. Story 107. When I was in college, a girl I liked took me out to eat at her friend's restaurant twice. The second time, she held onto my arm when we got out of the car and walked in. I had no idea. I was completely clueless. Story 108. A girl in my organic chemistry lab on the first day said I gave her paternal vibes and told me she was going to call me daddy. On the second day of the lab, I sat in the complete opposite corner of the room. Story 109. I was on vacation when a man approached me and spoke in Spanish. I do not speak Spanish, so I looked at him confused. He said, "Do you speak Spanish? That's okay. You are very beautiful. Very beautiful." It reminded me of the Hongdae guy on TikTok, but this was the Spanish version. Story 110. Picture this circa 2012. You are enjoying your drunken bar hop downtown, where a vast array of bars and clubs line the sidewalk. You are in a well-known military boot camp town close to a river. As you are stumbling your way to the next vodka crab, you see a retired and freshly painted Crown Victoria on 24-inch wheels. From then on, you shall forever be known as girl. Those were the days. Story 111. I was at a bar with my girlfriend and her friends. A drunk girl in our group realized she had forgotten her identification at another bar. She asked me to drive her and touched my arm and chest while asking. I made another person come with us on the drive. My girlfriend thought it was a funny situation. She ended up dinging my car door on a concrete planter. Story 112. A woman asked me for a favor at work. I replied with a line my father always used. "What is it worth to you?" She slowly looked me up and down and said, "Quite a lot, actually." Story 113. Them. "Would you like to sit on my face?" Me. I would like to see what this mouth can do." Them. "Yes." Me. "It will probably hurt your feelings." What made it even worse was having to explain that the words from my mouth would hurt his feelings. Story 114. I was skiing in Quebec, and at après-ski, a girl walked past me and said, "I like your hair. I would totally date you." I was young and had no idea how to capitalize on that, so I just walked away. Story 115. In a club, I was dancing with some friends when a girl grabbed me and pulled me toward her to dance. She was attractive, so I accepted. However, to this day, I imagine this happening in reverse and being accused of sexual assault. Story 116. I was at a restaurant for a double date. My leg and knee were hanging out from under the table. When our waiter, a pretty attractive male, came to greet us, he accidentally startled my leg and knee. I was a bit shocked, but maybe I was overreacting. I decided to test it by leaving my leg in the same place and putting my hand on my knee. The waiter came back, touched my leg again, this time on top of my hand, and rubbed my arm while pouring drinks. I guess that's my fault for encouraging the interaction. I was going to say something, but then his supervisor corrected him in front of us about our drinks, and he seemed to shut down after that. The waiter's boldness definitely caught me off guard. Story 117. It was my roommate's birthday, and we went out together to celebrate. We met 3 cool girls at the bar, and one of them was the birthday girl as well. I was more attracted to the birthday girl, but so was my roommate, so I tried to be his wingman for the night. We ended up sitting at a table with the girls, and at one point, one of them just sat on my lap. We started kissing and then brought 2 of the girls back to our apartment. The thing is, it was dark in the bar, and I didn't see the girl on me very well. She was not my type at all. I still went to bed with her, but when things got intense, I pretended not to have condoms. She gasped, turned away, and went to sleep. Story 118. In the market, he said, "Excuse me, is your name Google? Because you have everything I have been looking for." Story 119. Retail worker here. A woman used to come through periodically. She would make small talk and was friendly enough. One day, she was all dressed up. She came through again and asked me if I wanted to take her out. I had to explain that my husband would not appreciate that. Story 120. My diagnosed autistic mind completely missed it, but a woman gave me a certain look in public, the take me to bed look. It was pointed out to me later. Competition must be fierce in Portland, Maine. I am not exactly a model. Story 121. In 2012, a girl working at Taco Bell smiled and said she liked my shirt. It was a plain blue shirt, so I think she was flirting, but I do not know. That is about it. Story 122. A random woman at a festival came up to me, kissed me on the cheek, put her hand down the neck of my shirt, and walked away. Then I realized she had placed a $1 bill with her phone number in my shirt. I had a girlfriend at the time, so I did not follow through. Story 123. I was in my car, and a man in the car in front of me jumped out at a red light and came up to ask for my phone number. I do not recommend doing that. It was scary for a moment. I gave him a wrong number. Story 124. A woman in a bar lifted her top and pressed her chest against my back. I only noticed when my wife pointed it out. Story 125. I had a girl just stare at me across the bar and then come up and say she was trying to find her friend. I did not realize she was hitting on me until after the bar closed. I ran into her again on the side of the street, and she tried grabbing my arm as I walked past, staring at me again. Story 126. The closest I have ever come was being called cute. The first time was when I was about 16. It happened when I went to participate in the Regional Mathematical Olympiad. I fared miserably, though I enjoyed some parts of math. This girl I had met minutes earlier, who came to hang out with our friend since they went to the same school, blurted out during our conversation while four of us were seated together after the first half of the exam. "This guy is so cute." It made my heart flutter. I recall it clearly some 13 and a half years later. Story 127. I was in college studying abroad in Suriname, a small country in the Amazon rainforest, and we went deep into the jungle to visit a village. We brought a soccer ball to play with the locals. We played a game against their under-10 team and got beaten badly. I had only recently recovered from a fractured ankle, so I ended up as the goalkeeper for a while. Two villagers, probably about 15 years old, stood behind the goal and were whistling and catcalling at me throughout the game. I had no idea what they were saying. Sranatongo is a difficult language, but I was red in the face the whole time. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.